Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It is a great honor to be here. I would never have imagined speaking in front of a group of people like this. So I'm originally from Kenya, as Lorna correctly stated, and I grew up in the village. And what I saw there is just shocking, and deeply concerned about how we do global health. And most of my work was work about global health. And today I'll speak about a concept that I stumbled upon when doing research in global health. This concept is about maximizing particularizability. Particularizability is a concept that is opposite of generalizability, which is the foundation of the modern scientific method. Okay? So I'll speak about particularizability because we are transitioning to personalized health. And personalized health is a disruptive change that has taken place in the United States, mainly, and it's also taking place in other countries. Personalized health has shifted the focus from the institution to the individual, from the population to the individual. And traditionally, we have focused on generating knowledge to help us know how to help the sick people better. Okay? Now we have to focus on generating knowledge how to help well people better. That is a radical departure. And Peter Miller, in 2007, said, personalized healthcare market will focus on keeping healthy people healthy. The focus on well rather than the sick is a radical departure from the tradition. That's me, making my great leap from my mansion in the village to Rochester. And I just want to tell you, I did that in hot pursuit of global health. And why did I do that? Because global health is not working. You know, the diseases we are trying to eradicate, the efforts to eradicate malaria, tuberculosis, HIV, are followed by a severe upswing of the same disease we are trying to eradicate, maybe 4 or 5 years later. And efforts to eradicate tuberculosis is followed by emergence of severe drug-resistant form of TB. And why does that happen? In global health, in our practice of global health, our solutions are prescriptive. We prescribe bed nets to people living in African villages. But people living in African villages don't have beds. Okay? Then another point is that the mosquito does not wait for you to go to bed so that it can come and bite. So how do we miss such basic facts? We miss such facts precisely because of the way we look at individuals, precisely because of our strategy of generating knowledge for health. Our solution to provide bed nets seems generally relevant. But as you can see, that solution is particularly irrelevant. So generally relevant solutions are particularly irrelevant in specific situations. What do? The more we try to apply generally relevant solution in particularly irrelevant situation, we fail. We systematically fail. But the more we fail, the harder we try. And then we enter into a situation called fixes that fail in systems thinking. And we fail because of the way we look at individuals. Each individual, each one of us, has a depth that is not discernible by looking at that individual from outside. I cannot know what is going on in your life by looking at you from outside. In fact, each one of us has a depth that is not even explainable, sometimes by even ourselves. Michael Polanyi said in 1956 that we can know more than we can tell. We can only avoid this relevance paradox by knowing the more that a person can know but cannot tell. So emergencing is a discipline of knowing, of how to know, the more that others can know but cannot tell. Alison Wiley, in 2002, helped us to distinguish two modes of explanations. On one hand, are explanations that cover the greatest numbers of cases. On the other hand, are explanations of particulars of every given case. The scientific production is concerned with explanations that cover the greatest numbers of cases. Such explanations are normothetic. They are nomological. We are focused on standardization. We believe that the mean and the standard deviation describes everything about a population. When we report the mean and standard deviation of the incidence of the prevalence of a disease, we say that we have described everything about that population. It turns out, reporting the mean and the standard deviation, we're only reporting the events which are happening at the tip of the iceberg. According to Albert Einstein, not everything that counts can be counted. Now, Peter Senge, in 1990, gave us a metaphor of the iceberg to explain how we can see things that count but can't be counted. Remember, only a small portion of the iceberg is above water and is visible. But looking at the small portion of the iceberg that is above water does not tell you anything about the portion that is beneath the surface. When we see what we see as incidence, prevalence, and death rate, we describe the mean and standard deviation. We are just talking about the tip of the iceberg. So in order to see beneath the tip of the iceberg, we need a different kind of strategy of the way we look. According to Senge, human systems are stratifiable in multiple levels. At the top, we have the events. Below the events are the patterns, because when events are put together, they create a pattern. And then beneath that, there's a structure that is driving the pattern that we are observing. And beneath the structure is the mental models. And mental models are the attitudes, the beliefs, the expectations, the morals, the ethics, and things like those. And holding all those together is the container that creates the context. As a matter of fact, it is not possible to be effective in your work unless we get down to the level of the mental models, but we rarely ever go there. Now, in our traditional role in marketing health services, we place emphasis on marketing the healthcare facility and to the patients. And what we do, we emphasize, we say we have the best doctors in our facility, we have the best facility, we have the best equipment. Now, then we invite manufacturing companies to come to our facility, and that is where manufacturing companies are able to meet the consumer or the patient of health services. The consumer is never invited to these negotiations. How do we know what the consumer needs? But this structure is rapidly changing because the consumer is now able to bypass the healthcare system and go directly to the manufacturer for the products that they need, as we have witnessed in these discussions this morning. What do we do when we're being bypassed? As healthcare leaders, we must place emphasis on strategies that help us to generate knowledge for knowing how to deal with well people, not just patients. Services for keeping well people well will require understanding particulars of each individual. Services for keeping well people, helping well people better, will depend on our understanding how to create customized services for wellness. We have to find a strategy for dealing with mental models, understanding the attitudes, the beliefs, the expectations, and such things. The problem here, the major problem, is that mental models are tacit, and mental models are way below the surface line. They are not anywhere close to the tip of the iceberg, which is easily observable. Now, we don't have to be afraid, because Erickson, in 1956, said that the tacit dimension is actually knowable. But tacit dimension is only knowable by subliminal perception. Subliminal perception is a concept which Erickson called subception. How do we know by subception? Again, it turns out we don't have to invent any of this, because Japanese philosopher called Kitaro Nishida in 1921 described a special kind of space that you can create in your institution that can help you to start having this subliminal perception. And he called that a bar. A bar is a space of absolute nothingness. We want to talk a little bit more about that. Now, in the traditional setting, in 2001, Nonaka, Kono, and Toyama came back and said that the bar can have 4 subdivisions: the originating bar, the dialoguing bar, the exercising bar, and systematizing bar. And in that space, right now, in the healthcare system, you can see the consumer lives in the originating bar, and that's where the consumer resides. If the consumer gets unwell and comes to the hospital, then you can start establishing a dialogue with the healthcare system. Patient will see the doctor, gets a history taken, and that's kind of a dialogue that is established. And that is also the exercising bar in that space. That knowledge becomes systematized, in medical research, clinical trials, and what have you, and gets published in consensus documents that later can appear anywhere in medical journals, the internet. Now, it turns out that we have been the agents of knowledge in the systematizing bar. But presently, the consumer is able to go directly to the systematizing bar and get the systematized knowledge down to the originating bar. We do not know how to go to the originating bar because we wait for patients to come to us. We wait for people to get sick. That is a problem. We are being bypassed one more time. What do we do? How do we solve this problem? How do we know how to build an originating bar that gives us access to the people when they are well and know how to design systems for interacting with them? We have to go to the originating bar and create a very intimate relationship. This intimate relationship involves all the stakeholders of health: the industry, the consumer, and the healthcare industry. The consumer has the power, and because of that, we have to stay there and observe phenomena. We have to create a form of intimacy with the consumer. That means adopting a very intimate scale of observation. And this form of intimacy with the consumer is a discipline that the modern scientific method does not have. And that's why the Center for Design, the Center for Innovation here at Mayo, has moved from that and going towards different type of idea creation. Now, the knowledge that emerges from the phenomena that we observe in the originating bar can be interpreted in different ways. But the knowledge that we interpret, the phenomena that we interpret, is not the same as the phenomena itself. And that's something we have to be careful about. The forms of representation that emerge from the intimate relationship with the consumer include phenomenology, ethnography, critical science, and grounded theory. I think that those different forms of representation represent also different levels of knowledge that you can have, knowledge products. For example, you can use phenomenology procedures to describe particulars of an observed phenomena. I call this level 1 knowledge because it helps you to answer what questions, like what's going on within that group of people. And then you can use ethnography to go even deeper and start answering how questions. And I would call that the level 2 knowledge because it helps us to answer how questions. Then eventually, you can go even deeper. If you want to know how processes relate to each other, then you can do grounded theory. And I call grounded theory level 3 knowledge representation because it helps us to answer why questions. These strategies are about maximizing empirical adequacy. They're not about generalizability. They're about maximizing particularizability, getting to know the individual case and how to deal with it. Emergencing is about maximizing particularizability. I'll just give you an example of how this happened outside of healthcare, somewhere totally different. 7-Eleven Japan is a company, well, you know, it's the 7-Eleven is 7-Eleven, 7-Eleven US. It is the most profitable convenience store franchisor in Japan. The company was created, it has created originating bar. And what the leader of 7-Eleven has done is to employ hundreds of walking around employees in the company. And what these walking around employees do, they just gather tacit knowledge in the store with the customers. And then they use that tacit knowledge to generate new hypotheses about what they need. Can it be done in the US? Good company is Interleukin Genetics. Interleukin Genetics was founded specifically for predicting inflammatory gum disease, but there was no market for this product. So the company raised money and then collapsed later. So what happened, Interleukin Genetics was bought by Amway. Amway has got direct access to the consumer, and the story is totally different. Amway is one example of being originating bar. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.